This is Bruce Lee, The Evolution of a Martial Artist by Tommy Gong. Brought to you by a body like Bruce. Bruce Lee, The Evolution of a Martial Artist by Tommy Gong. Dedication. This book is dedicated to Bruce Lee, founder of Jeet Kune Do. Bruce, although we never met, you have been a hero to the author since childhood and throughout his adulthood. Your inspiration continues to guide us toward our personal liberation. This book also is dedicated to the memory of Ted Wong, who passed away in late 2010, one of Bruce Lee's students, Jeet Kune Do students. Ted Wong dedicated his life to the practice, preservation and perpetuation of Jeet Kune Do around the world and was an integral part of the leadership of the Bruce Lee Foundation. He was the author's Shifu or Sifu, and in Chinese culture, one Shifu or Sifu is much more than just a teacher or instructor, but more like a father figure and or mentor. The author expected to have numerous conversations with Sifu Ted Wong regarding the information contained in his book, but he passed away before the primary writing began. In the same way, Ted had to carry on the teachings of Jeet Kune Do without his Sifu, Bruce Lee. The author had to pick up the pieces and finish the journey of completing this book on his own. However, since he spent ample time with Sifu Ted over many years, he prepared him and he gained the confidence to complete it. Thank you, Sifu Ted, for all that you have shared with me. I will treasure it for the rest of my life. Author Tommy Gong. Ted Wong and Bruce Lee. And there's Tommy Gong and Ted Wong. Looking up. Table of contents. Acknowledgement, forward by Linda Lee Cadwell, forward by Shannon Lee, prefaced by the author, and so forth. What we will probably be really interested in is the mind of Bruce Lee, glimpses into the soul and psyche or mind of the little dragon. Because all of this Jeet Kune Do technique, etc., would really be applicable to an experienced martial artist or somebody who's actually in Jeet Kune Do, practicing it, right, learning it, and so forth. So we're going to have a little look at this one in particular, chapter 7. Acknowledgement, forward by Linda Lee Cadwell, where she states, over all the years since Bruce passed away, she had often mused about how he managed to get so much done in such a short time, as we do all the time. As she had gotten older, she became more aware of how young Bruce was when he died at 32 years old, and yet he was so wise beyond his years. She thinks to herself, how did he pack so much into just a few years? How was he able to get from there to here in a relatively brief span of time? In this book, Tommy Gong has laid out the paths Bruce chose in his lifetime to develop his martial art of Jeet Kune Do and his philosophy of self-actualization. He traces every aspect of Bruce's growth, including the physicality of fighting, the science of biomechanics, the psychology of human nature, and the philosophy of living a fulfilled life. Tommy Gong has drawn a roadmap for you, the reader, to travel from Hong Kong to Seattle, Oakland, Los Angeles and back to Hong Kong to witness key incidents in Bruce's life that led to his fast-paced evolution from student of Wing Chun to founder of the most refined martial art in the world, Jeet Kune Do. Tommy Gong brings a gold-plated background to the study of Bruce's personal journey. Tommy's Sifu Ted Wong was a close friend and personal student who probably spent more one-on-one time training with Bruce than anyone else. Bruce considered Ted to be a pure student because previous martial art training did not clutter his mind. In the many decades since Bruce passed away, Ted continued to study and teach only Jeet Kune Do and to refine his understanding of Bruce's art, both physically and philosophically. As Ted's student, Tommy was able to glean an insightful perspective on how Bruce's mind worked. We're pretty sure we read that Ted Wong was actually a Christian Methodist minister. You may want to do your research on that. Tommy's research on this project has been impeccable. As Ted's student, Tommy was able to glean an insightful perspective on how Bruce's mind worked. Tommy's research on this project has been impeccable in an effort to understand Bruce's progression toward artistry in the martial arts. Tommy interviewed numerous former students. He spent time with Bruce's assistant instructor, Taki Kimura, in Seattle, and with Bruce's Oakland student and good family friend, Alan Joe. Tommy learned about the sciences of kinesiology and physiology with experts like Jeff Pisciota to further his understanding of the efficiency of Bruce's movements. He researched former childhood classmates of Bruce's to delve for the answers to how a skinny kid from Hong Kong became the most prominent martial artist and philosopher of the 20th century. Tommy's innate curiosity drove him to search deeply into Bruce's motivation toward excellence. His powers of observation combined with a keen intelligence have provided the reader with an interpretation of Bruce's Odyssey that resonates with depth. In this book, Tommy makes available to every man and woman the story of a remarkable man, but in doing so he lays out a blueprint that will inspire the reader to create his own path to success. At a very young age, Bruce felt he had within him a great creative and spiritual force that would allow him to overcome obstacles and realise his dreams. Tommy took this inspiration to heart by searching for the source of Bruce's genius, and in doing so realised one of his own dreams of chronicling the evolution of his Sifu's teacher, Bruce Lee. In writing this book, Tommy has exhibited a spirit of generosity that goes beyond everyday acts of kindness. He has literally put years into the research of this material and taken time away from his family in order to complete it. In addition, the royalties arising from the sale of the book go to the Bruce Lee Foundation, etc., etc. If Bruce were here today, he would be proud of this book because it goes beyond just mere glimpses into his life and seeks to explore how he translated thoughts into action. Tommy's Sifu, Ted Wong, would be equally proud that a student had drawn from his teacher the essence of Jeet Kune Do. Linda here believes both Bruce and Ted would say to Tommy, "Job well done." Linda Lee Cadwell. And there's a foreword by Shannon, daughter of Bruce Lee. She states here, she would encourage the reader not to skip the book's appendixes, in particular the appendix on biomechanics, as it reveals for the first time the scientific efficacy of her father's evolutionary process. That section also provided an interesting point of view and discussion of a fascinating scientific area for anyone curious about the science of movement. Preface by the author. Here's Linda and all the students. The nucleus looks like Taki Kimura. Is it Richard Busilo? This could be Ted Wong. Not too sure who the others are. Introduction. What is Jeet Kune Do? On July 9, 1967, Bruce Lee named his personal expression and approach to martial arts Jeet Kune Do, which translates as the way of intercepting fist or foot. He especially liked the stop hit technique from the sport of fencing and wanted to come up with a term describing the very nature of the technique, but on so many different levels, Jeet Kune Do meant so much more to Bruce than simply intercepting an opponent's attack. He truly desired to free his followers from the confines of martial arts styles and traditions, a classical mess, claiming JKD to be the only non-classical form of Chinese Kung Fu. Having no bias in combat, being neither for nor against, one begins to take on the true nature of yin and yang when embracing this philosophy, with its structure being described as a circle with no circumference, so there are no boundaries, making it a formless form. One cannot fathom or truly understand and grasp JKD. As soon as you think you have grasped it, you have lost it. That is, as soon as you have a way, therein lies the limitation. Lee liked to describe his truth in martial arts philosophy. He encouraged followers to blaze their own paths in their personal development and excellence in martial arts, to have faith and trust in themselves when taking directions that might even stray off the Bruce Lee path. But with this open-ended, sometimes circular approach to martial arts, what is a starting point for the layman or beginner? Although it is easy to understand the end game for followers potentially doing their own thing based on their personal journeys, what are the beginning steps? A Common Beginning. Why Jeet Kune Do's history must be preserved. So the techniques, photos of Bruce Lee with his different students, Taki Kimura and Bruce, James Yim Lee and Bruce, Dan Innocento and Bruce, Jesse Glover, Ted Wong and Bruce Lee. And goes into Hong Kong, research your own experience. I guess it's the hospital where he was born, maybe. Or the usual Bruce Lee biography information. There's a birth certificate there, by the looks of it. Bruce Lee is a youngster and his family. And it continues with Yip Man and Bruce Lee. Valuable and enduring lessons in Tao, by the way. Professor Yip Man, head of the Wing Chun School of Kung Fu, would come up to him and say, "Loom, dragon, relax and calm your mind. Forget about yourself and follow the opponent's movement. Let your mind, the basic reality, do the counter movement without any interfering deliberation. Above all, learn the art of detachment." That was it, he thought. He must relax. However, right then he had just done something contradictory against his will. That occurred at the precise moment he said, "I," plus must, and relax. The demand for effort and must was already inconsistent with the effortlessness and relaxed. When his acute self-consciousness grew to what the psychologists refer to as the double-blinded type, his instructor would again approach him and say, "Lung, Li Shao Lung, preserve yourself by following the natural beings of things and don't interfere. Remember, never to assert yourself against nature, never be in frontal opposition to any problems, but to control it by swinging with it. Don't practice this week, go home and think about it." So he does. After spending many hours of meditation and practice, he gave up and went sailing alone in the junk. On the sea, he thought of all his past training and got mad at himself and punched the water. Right then, at that moment, a thought suddenly struck him. Was this not water, the very essence of Kung Fu? Hadn't this water just now illustrated to him the principle of Kung Fu? He struck it, but it did not suffer hurt. Again he struck it with all his might, yet it was not wounded. Then he tried to grasp a handful of it, but this proved impossible. This water, the softest substance in the world, and what could be contained in the smallest jar, only seemed weak. In reality it could penetrate the hardest substance in the world. That was it. He wanted to be like the nature of water. Suddenly a bird flew by and cast its reflection on the water. Right then, as Bruce was absorbing himself with the lesson of water, another mystic sense of hidden meaning revealed itself to him. Should not the thoughts and emotions he had when in front of an opponent pass like the reflection of that bird flying over the water? This was exactly what Professor Yip meant by being detached, not being without emotion or feeling, but being one in whom feeling was not sticky or blocked. Therefore, in order to control himself, he must first accept himself by going with and not against his nature. And so forth. Lee wrote this essay at the University of Washington after a thorough study of Chinese philosophy and many years of reflection of that key lesson in his training. It showed a deep level of understanding he had achieved during his formative years in Hong Kong. It illustrates how some important lessons early on had a huge influence and set his path in certain directions. More information on Bruce. Taking up boxing in college or the university. Cha-Cha dancing, which he became Cha-Cha champion of Hong Kong in 1950 something, or whatever it was. 1958. He won the Crown Colony Cha-Cha Championship in Hong Kong. Then he goes to America, to Seattle, and it continues on there. So information about Taki Kimura. It's Bruce Lee's best man. A couple of his other students here. First students. This is the these are JKD certificates. Takamura's membership card front and back. There's more here. Maybe those are membership cards or something. Ruby Chow and Bruce Lee and Peter Lee. And Martial Arts Zhong Fan Kung Fu Foundation and Wing Chun. All the techniques. Bruce's ideas. Wooden dummy practice. Mook Chong. And then delete 2 halves of 1 whole. Which is a quote about Linda that we gave before in the previous video about Bruce Lee's thoughts on Linda. There were 2 halves of 1 whole. Looks like he's doing some Tai Chi with his father, Lee Cadwell. It's a very interesting book if you want to understand Wing Chun, martial arts, Chinese Kung Fu, the philosophy and so forth. This would be a recommended book to read. With James' encouragement, James Jim Lee, Bruce began to contemplate establishing a chain of Kung Fu schools. According to Linda, James convinced Bruce that not much was going on in the Pacific Northwest as far as martial arts were concerned, and he needed to find himself in California. During the summer of 1964, Bruce decided to move to Oakland to train James Yim Lee, and established the Oakland branch of the Chun Fan Kung Fu Institute. Linda and Bruce were married that summer, and they stayed with James and his family in Oakland. Tragically, James's wife contracted a fast-acting cancer and died shortly after the Lees moved in. Linda became a surrogate mother to James's 2 young children, Karina and Greglon. Ellen Joe, an inspiration for health and fitness. Wow, he had a pretty good physique there. It looks like he was in Vietnam. Must be muscle builders, eh? Bob Baker, probably responsible for smuggling in Bruce's Himalayan, Tibetan hashish, etc. Supposedly, and weapons. Brandon is born, Lee Cadwell, Bruce's father, dies. Green Hornet, advertisement. Bruce's drawings. Still to do with JKD. Chun Fan, Kung Fu, JKD. Training methods, physical training, aerobic conditioning, which he felt was very important. Too many people leave out physical fitness, try to perfect the art, neglecting their health and fitness, so they don't have the energy to perform or last long. So the equipment, which was made for him upon his request. As James Yim Lee was a welder by trade, he invented many unique training devices that Bruce Lee used. They are often built out of steel parts and heavy springs, so they would spring back after being struck or released. These were ingeniously designed to move and withstand the full brunt of a kick or a punch. Iron chain, exercise equipment. What is that? Like a timing piece. Now, like when you learn to play the piano and there's that metronome or something like this. Yeah, it's brilliant. Ted Wong must have been in the military as well. Bruce Lee, could be James Yim and Ted Wong by the looks of it. Joe Lewis, Chuck Norris, Castaway the Dragon, looks like Nora Meow. Chuck Norris, probably Bob Wall at the back. Director Sterling Sullivan, there's looks like Coburn. Could be McQueen, not really sure. Steve McQueen. Kicking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's 7'2", ex-basketball player for the Lakers. 1-inch punch demonstration. Sees a guy flying across the room into a chair. Shannon Lee was born. There's many books, 2,500 books apparently, in his library. One of them being a book on Islam. Longstreet, James Francisco. Here he's with the man on the set of The Big Boss. Some still scenes from there. We're looking for that mind section. The mind, the psycho of Bruce Lee. That's why we're skipping forward, because that really interests us. go have a look at that contents page again to determine exactly what page we're trying to get to. Chapter something, 67 or something. Maybe it's 6 or 7. Yeah, 7, so it's 199. Just skip there. Because this would fit in with our steps of Bruce Lee. Okay. Walk on philosophy. Chapter 7. The mind of Bruce Lee. Glimpses into the soul and psyche, the mind of the little dragon, how he thought, his ideas, etc., and how he expressed them. Most people need to overcome the temptation of being completely in awe of Lee's physique and prowess as a martial artist to appreciate fully everything he had to offer, including his intellect or his intelligence. This appreciation for Lee's physicality was especially strong due to his groundbreaking appearances on television and in movies. However, he also developed into a profound thinker, discovering the truth for himself when reading many of the great philosophers of the past and present. It was through the search for the truth that he gained the intellectual self-sufficiency and courage to break away from stifling traditions and evolve his martial arts. Those who personally knew Lee were able to realize his genius, not only as a martial artist but as a human being. Many personal students mention how good they felt being around him and how he motivated and instilled confidence. Okay. Welcome to part 2. This is what we're interested in. We are a Body Like Bruce. Continuing on our review of Bruce Lee, the evolution of a martial artist. Chapter 7. The mind of Bruce Lee. Glimpses into the soul and psyche of the little dragon. Most people need to overcome the temptation of being completely in awe of Lee's physique and prowess as a martial artist, to appreciate fully everything he had to offer, including his intellect or his intelligence. This appreciation for Lee's physicality was especially strong due to his groundbreaking appearances on television and in movies. However, he also developed into a profound thinker, discovering the truth for himself when reading many of the great philosophers of the past and present. It was through the search for the truth that he gained the intellectual self-sufficiency and courage to break away from stifling traditions and evolve his martial arts. Those who personally knew Lee were able to realize his genius, not only as a martial artist but as a human being. Many personal students mention how good they felt being around him and how he motivated and instilled confidence in them. Sterling Sullivan once said, "In my whole life, no man, no woman was ever as exciting as Bruce Lee. How is it that a man could have such a positive effect on not only those who knew him, but those who were born after he passed on? Most likely it was how his self-knowledge, his supreme confidence in himself, and his positive outlook on life were expressed in his presence on screen and his physical art of expressing the capabilities of the human body that inspire us all." The creative life force. Even at a young age, Lee felt the creative life force within him, and it gave him purpose in life. It drove his being. He knew he would accomplish much since he refused to give in to failure or setbacks. It was this dogged determination that allowed him not to only become arguably the greatest martial artist who ever lived, but also a groundbreaking Asian actor who would be universally recognised around the world even today. In a letter to Pearl Searle in September 1962, he expressed this belief openly, and he stated, "I feel I have this great creative and spiritual force within me that is greater than faith, greater than ambition, greater than confidence, greater than determination, greater than vision. It is all these combined, whether it is a God-held or not. I feel this great force, this untapped power, this dynamic something within me. This feeling defies description, and there is no experience with which this feeling may be compared. It is something like a strong emotion mixed with faith, but a lot stronger. When you drop a pebble into a pool of water, the pebble starts a series of ripples that expand until they encompass the whole pool. This is exactly what will happen when I give my ideas a definite plan of action. Right now, I can project my thoughts into the future. I can see ahead of me. I dream. Remember that practical dreamers never quit. I am not easily discouraged. Readily visualize myself as overcoming obstacles, winning out over setbacks, achieving impossible objectives. Reflecting on his own self-realization, Bruce Lee later wrote in the early 70s about self-discovery and harnessing the powers within one in the screenplay for The Silent Flute. When a man comes to a conscious, vital realization of those great spiritual forces within himself and begins to use those forces in science, in business and in life, he progresses in the future. His progress in the future will be unparalleled. It's a fact. We have come across that sort of thing. Realizing that if you come to a conscious, vital realization of great spiritual forces within yourself, and you begin to use those forces, as he puts here, in science, in business and in life, etc., your progress in the future will be unparalleled. Self-knowledge and personal expression. Lee said all types of knowledge ultimately mean self-knowledge. He realized in all learning, whether it is in the martial arts, academia, relationships, or anything in his life, the experience reveals much more of one's being to oneself. In this way, one must be willing to learn from the challenges in life and how to adapt to attain success. Like Krishnamurti, that's Jiddu, not the other. There are actually two Krishnamurtis. The one who sat on the chair, the old guy with the white hair, and 2 minutes later he starts talking. That guy. Lee believed learning cannot be accomplished in isolation, but rather through relations to people, ideas and events. So although Jeet Kune Do is a martial art, the learning process one cultivates is to be used in everyday life. Self-knowledge is the basis of Jeet Kune Do, or JKD, because it is effective not only for the individual's martial art, but also for his life as a human being. To Bruce Lee, at least, the way that he taught it all, all types of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge. So therefore they're coming in as other people coming in as other actors, and asking them to teach, etc., etc. He's teaching them because they really want to learn. They wanted to learn to express themselves through some movement, be it anger, be it determination, or whatever. So in other words, they were paying Bruce Lee to show them in combative form the art of expressing the human body. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person, and so forth. One must be free to express oneself honestly, whether it be in martial arts or acting. The truly great painters and sculptors of the past had a vision in their souls, and it was reflected in their works of art. Despite the political pressure they may have experienced, their patrons' intentions or the beliefs of their contemporary artists, the true masters expressed themselves on a canvas or marble. Lee expressed himself in physical form, and he realized the need to be devoid of styles or systems in order to have the complete freedom truly to express himself. Yeah. It's like if you're religious, break away from the indoctrination, the organised religions. They're there to control you, down press you, make you a robot. You can't live like a mechanical man. You can't be a real human being if you're a robot or made a mechanical man. Wisdom of the Tao. Motivation. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, 1749 to 1832. Lee was inspired by this quote from Goethe, a 19th century German writer, artist and politician, considered among the most important thinkers in Western culture. Not only must we think great thoughts, but we have the duty to take action. Lee encountered many challenges in life, yet he was not beaten down by them. Instead, he adapted himself or circumstances to come out on top. Much of Lee's success can be attributed to his positive outlook on life, turning challenges into stepping stones instead of losing them or letting it bog him down. He turns his stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Captain of my mind, Lee recognised his thoughts and reactions to challenges in life had a profound effect on what happened to him. The aphorism, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is, contains the secret of life. James Allen further added, a man is literally what he thinks. This might be a shocking statement, but everything is a state of mind. Bruce Lee always was buffeted by circumstances because he thought of himself as a human being of outside condition. Then he realised that he is the power that commands the feeling of his mind and from which circumstances grow. Pessimism blunts the tools you need to succeed. Negativism does that as well. Negativism does that as well. Negativity. Optimism is a faith that leads to success. So many diaries. He read a lot of these self-help motivators in his day, like Norman Vincent Peale, Napoleon Hill, and so forth. We have done a video on the books that Bruce Lee read. We suggest we may put it as an end screen at the end of this video. We suggest read similar. That way understand, it's a way to understand Bruce's mind, his psyche, what he read and what he believed and what he absorbed and utilised and so forth. And those became part of his philosophy. As he said, specialised reading, you look at all things, analyse them, research them, etc., absorb them into your form of self-expression, etc., and then take from them what you need and then make them your own, so forth. It looks like he's got lots and lots and lots of diaries where he wrote notes in it, right? Probably carried them on his being as well, right? Small notebooks. He's forever writing stuff down that came to mind. And here is a poem. This poem, thought to have been published for the first time in 1905 by the Unity Tract Society under the title Thinking, is widely referred to today as The Man Who Thinks He Can. It is attributed to late 19th century poet Walter Wintle. And notes on motivation. And this is the appendix that his daughter Shannon Lee said, if you're going to read this particular book, don't bypass this, don't miss it out, don't leave it out. Read it, absorb it, embed it in the back of your mind, your subconscious mind, okay, because it's very, very important. Most students in the martial arts and other genres are conformists. Instead of learning to depend on themselves for expression, they blindly follow the instructors or their teachers, no longer feeling alone and finding security in mass imitation. Repetitive robot, right? Mechanics. The product of this imitation is a dependent mind, dependent on those teachers, to instruct you on what to do, to tell you what to do, how to think, how to talk, how to walk, how to act, how to parrot. Product of this imitation is a dependent mind. Independent inquiry, which is essential to genuine understanding, is sacrificed. They often tell you, your teachers, your instructors, your imams, your pastors, etc., etc., who are you to question? Just believe what we say, and if it proves to be a lie, believe it anyway. Look around the martial arts and witness the assortment of routines, performers, trick artists, desensitized robots, glorifiers of the past, and so on, all followers or exponents of organized despair. How often are we told by different sensei or masters, etc., that the martial arts are life itself? And this is included in any other genre. But how many of them truly understand what they are saying? Life is a constant movement, rhythmic as well as random. Life is constant change and not stagnation. Instead of choicelessly flowing with this process of change, many of these, quote, masters, unquote, past and present, have built an illusion of fixed forms, rigidly subscribing to traditional concepts and techniques of the art, solidifying the ever-flowing, dissecting the totality. What was he saying? What were we just thinking? That someone wrote the gospel, and that's the gospel according to the gospel, and you can't change it. It can never be changed because it's the gospel. Okay. That's just an example which relates to all genres. This is how it is. This is how it's always been 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and so we've got to go with that. Yeah. Don't dare go against it or think for yourself or all that sort of stuff. Yeah, don't question it, and so on. Our masters have been doing it for 2,000 years before us, so we'll carry on doing it the same way for 2,000 years. The most pitiful sight is to see sincere students earnestly repeating those imitative drills, listening to their own screams and spiritual yells. In most cases, the means these sensei or teachers offer their students are so elaborate that students must give tremendous attention to them until gradually they lose sight of the end. They end up performing their methodical routines as a mere conditioned response rather than responding to what is, or reality, right? What actually is reality, what's fact, what's evident, etc. What's real. They no longer listen to circumstances, they recite their circumstances. These poor souls have unwittingly become trapped in a miasma of classical martial arts training, or a mess. A teacher, a really good sensei, is never a giver of truth. He is a guide, a pointer to the truth that the student must discover for himself. A good teacher therefore studies each student individually and encourages the student to explore himself, both internally and externally, until ultimately the student is integrated with his being. For example, a skillful teacher might spur his student's growth by confronting him with certain frustrations. A good teacher is a catalyst. Besides possessing deep understanding, he must also have a responsive mind with great flexibility and sensitivity. So you need to be emancipated from these who say this is the way, this is the only way. The masters before us have been doing it for 2,000 years, so we're not going to do anything different. Even if it proves to be a lie, we're still going to follow it, and we demand that you do so like us. Don't be any different in some. Appendix B, the Bruce Lee Library. Chinese martial arts, boxing, philosophy, wrestling and grappling, fencing. Okay. Psychology, how to box, self-help and positive thinking. Science and training, acting and filmmaking. These are all the subjects that he researched, he studied. Biomechanics and evolution from Jun Fan to Jeet Kune Do. Evolution. Evolution of Martial Arts. Biomechanical analysis. It's JKD and Bruce's like research, etc. He found and he perfected, etc. It's like a science. It's basically a science of fighting, right? The body, the mind, etc., etc. It's all science. It's all done scientifically. And these people here, like, maybe they've done the same sort of analysis and found it to be true. Maybe they were analysing all of Bruce's techniques. Here's the back cover. The question was, Bruce Lee really that good? Lee answered that question himself poetically. Well, if I say I'm good, probably you will say I'm boasting, but if I say I'm no good, you'll know I'm lying. Audiences know Bruce Lee as a trailblazer of martial arts movies, but he also took a revolutionary approach to martial arts, relying on the new anecdotes of those who knew him best, including his widow, Linda Lee Cadwell, and some of his closest students. Tommy Gong explores Lee's journey through life on a quest for the ultimate in martial arts and personal development. And here's some information about the author, Tommy Gong. So he's been involved with the study of Jeet Kune Do for almost 30 years, etc., etc. And that was Bruce Lee, The Evolution of a Martial Artist by Tommy Gong. If you enjoyed the video about this book and what it contains, then please subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up or a like, add your comments below, then share this with family, friends and everyone else you know you may come across who love the martial arts, who are crazy about Bruce Lee, etc., etc. They may be very grateful, thankful that you showed them this video, showed them or told them about our channel. Thank you for taking the time to watch our videos. Thanks again to all those who subscribed. You have really made our channel grow. We value you. Blessings be upon you, and we are very grateful to you for doing so.